So I had this whole video planned, and I was going to record that video today. I had received the Warhammer 40K starter set I had bought, and I was going to do an unboxing video, and I was going to talk about what was in it, and maybe do some assembly of the different figures, and all that. And I come to my room after finishing my chores, I've come to grab the box off my desk, and it's gone. Entirely gone. And I've spent probably the past hour looking through the house. I did not move it. Think, where could it have gone? Now, I still haven't found it. Which is not good because I bought that with like pretty much all the money I had at that point because it was a new hobby. I was interested in getting it. I got a little bit more, but I've got that reserved for some books. It wasn't cheap. It was depending on uh your depending on how much money you have, you might be able to cheap. It was like $42, which certainly wasn't a cheap thing. And, and I came into it. I was like, I'm gonna assemble it. I'm gonna record the whole video, and basically, right where this laptop is right now, recording me, right behind it, right here, like you can't see where I'm reaching, but I'm putting my hand behind it, would be where the box was, and the box is about as big as this. So it's not that big of a box, but it's really, this is a good model of the size of it because it was about this thick, long, tall, all that. This is a really good model, you know? But it's like a box and it's super colorful, really hard to, uh, you know, accidentally misplace. And, I haven't touched it. Mom hasn't touched it. Uh, my cousins were staying with us for a bit because they were having some stuff going on, and they just left yesterday, so maybe they touched it, but I don't know. I will have to check up on that. But I know in past videos I had mentioned that I was going to do a video about that stuff, and that's why you haven't seen it yet. Well, that's partially the reason. Partially, I've just been really busy. Um, I also was trying to record another video yesterday called, or part of a series I was trying to do. That got interrupted and I didn't get back to it, and so because of the content of the video, it wouldn't be fair to just record it now. Um, Although I might change my mind on that matter. You know, huh. Just thinking, I do more with this channel. Because, most of the other people on it right now, aren't really doing much with it, because we can't get in film reviews, you know. Um, yeah, I could record some. I mean, lately I haven't really recorded much film related stuff at all, but um, you know, I don't think it'd be a bad thing if the channel continued even once we were able to record again to branch out into other medias as well. Like I said, I'm a very big fan of the literary media, so I wanted a place to talk about that, and I did have a channel I was working on for that, but then my editing beast died. The Mac with Final Cut Pro still not died. It's dying, not really working so great right now, which is why this is the video format you have. And I think I've lost that footage by now. Most of the projects we've been working on, I think most of the footage has been lost. I suppose I should just give you an update on what I'm doing, or what I'm reading. Sword of Destiny, second story collection of the Witcher series. Nick will probably eventually make a video about the Witcher series, because he is a very big fan. He's a fan of the games, fan of the books, and fan of the show. So I think he'll probably end up making a video on something like that. I'll probably help. I like this series. It's not really my forte. I haven't, you know, been involved in as much of it as he has. But I'm just kind of reading my way farther into the books. I really like the first collection, The Last Witch, and it's a shame that they didn't make the Nidavellan story in the show, but apparently they're going to do that in season 2, which pacing is. It would have been cooler if they did it in the first season, but at least I know the first season was a little more rougher and they're trying to polish it up. So maybe it's a good thing because that was a really great story. I finished The Wall of Ascension. Wow, what an ending. Dang, that was a good ending. I really want to be reading the third book right now. I've had a little bit of it spoiled for me just by like memes, and I'm kind of dreading the ending of that because apparently some characters die. Some characters did die in this one too, but it wasn't as bad. But also, I really want to get to the third book because what happens in the end of this one. But I don't have it, so I'm thinking about just ordering it. I was gonna try to find it at a thrift store so I could get the older cover to match this one or the first American covers. But I think I'll go with the new ones that they've printed just so I can get it. Hold on, I gotta put it back on the shelf. In the meantime, I am reading more of Brandon Sanderson, more of the Cosmere. I'm actually reading. Hold on. The first published Sanderson book, which for some reason, I don't know. I've only read like a little bit of it so far, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like my mind never realized that people just don't talk about it as much as Mistborn or Stormlight Archive. But this is so far a really good book, and that's Elantris. I am. Keep in mind, I finished the first Raiden chapter, the first Serene chapter, and I'm almost done with first. God, I'm gonna pronounce this bad. I probably pronounce all of them bad, but the Wraithen chapter, this guy right here in the middle, however you say that, and so far, Raiden is my favorite just because he's in a really interesting spot, and I really like his what's his name? The guy he met, Yaladon. Kind of reminds me of Lopin a little bit, but if you have read Stormlight Archive and you know who that is, but no, he's his own character. He's giving me some Lopin vibes when they first meet. But so far it's really good. Basically, my plan is I could go over my reading plan because I like reading. I'm a big nerd, so you're gonna have to listen to this. Basically, my big plan here is so I've read out of the Cosmere, Mistborn or Final Empire, Wall of Ascension, and The Way of Kings. I'm trying to finish Mistborn Era 1 first, but since I don't have the third book, I'm reading Elantris. Then the third book, The Hero of Ages. Then I'm reading Warbreaker because it's recommended you read that before Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, which are the next two Stormlight Archive books, and the ones I'm reading after Warbreaker. And then once I've done that, depending on how long it takes me, I'll either jump into Rhythm of War if it's out by then, if it's been out for a bit and, I can actually get it in paperback or from the library or something. Or then instead of doing that, I'll jump into the Arcanum Unbounded and Mistborn Era 2, and then, White Sand and all that. But, it all depends. Basically, at this point in my reading, I do have some like other things that I'm reading besides Cosmere books, like this and Brazinger and stuff. But those are more the side ventures. The real thing that I'm really focusing on is the Cosmere, because the first Mistborn book, very very good. Final Empire, excellent, excellent book. It is very good entry point, but when I was reading it, I was really trying to just begin my sampling phase where I figured out what I liked, where I was reading all the different like first books by all the authors, and now I've completed a bit of that sampling phase, and I'm starting to go back and reading the next books of the series. And there's a lot of stuff happening in the Cosmere. It's a very interesting universe, and you know, I finished before I, started going back and going through the book twos, and sort of actually in that time, I was wrapping up my read of The Way of Kings, which that was such an ending, you know, and it really re-sparked my interest in the Cosmere because I'd been reading that for a long time. Because I had, had to put it down because I was, reading like 10 books at once. And so I'd gotten back to it and I had, gotten into the groove and I had hit the Sanderson Avalanche at the end of the book. And I just thought, I was thinking about, this the Cosmere, but I've read very little of it, I realized, and it was definitely an interest I was very interested in, and I wanted to be more involved in it. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna binge my way through it because, it's accessible. I quite enjoy it. I was thinking I probably won't get towards reading it for a while. And then I finished, some of my other books, and I had a much smaller TBR, and I was just like, we're just gonna go for it, because it's a great series. All the books are great so far that I've read, and I just wanted to be able to interact with the community more. I wanted to. I did basically. I was bumping all the Cosmere books up my list instead of getting to them slowly over the years. I thought I'm just gonna read them all now because they're really good, and I don't want to wait that long to get to them. All the books I read are pretty good, are really good. They're all, I haven't really read a bad book in a long time. Yehowever, it just when I'm trying to read so many series and all that at once, trying to get a sampling, instead of at first this year I thought I was just going to be go back and reading book two of all the series, but I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to try to just take out chunks of different series, or take out like whole series. I'm thinking later in the year I'll be getting deeper into the Wheel of Time, but right now in this part of the year I'm focusing on Cosmere because it's important to me, just like Wheel of Time is important to me, but I don't have access to as much of or as many of the Wheel of Time books because I have the first two Wheel of Time books and I've read those and they were amazing. I do not have my hands on the third one, and I bought at the youth ranch 6, 7, and 8, so I could, once I got them all lined up, I could binge through those as well. And that these two series are really really great. They have this beautiful epic feeling that comes with reading epic fantasy. And I recently did finish The Great Hunt, book 2 of the Wheel of Time, and I was like, wow, amazing ending. It made me want to go on to book 3, but I didn't have the ability to get book 3 at the time. And so, I was like, okay, I'll just read some other books until I have that ability. And right now, those books I'm reading are the Cosmere because those are the two series that I've really just been basking in recently, Like Wheel of Time, the first book, the ending was really, really good. And instead of, thinking, wow, that was good, move on to the next first book. For the first time in a while, I moved on to the second book. Not because all the other first books I read that year were bad, but it's just something in my mind made me bump up book 2 on my reading list, or my TBR to be read. And I just read it right then. I was like, no, I have to see what happens next. And I was like, when I got back from camping with my dad after I'd finished the first Lightbringer book, which was really recently, and a few other things, I was like, you know what? I want to read Well of Ascension. I had been planning to read it recently. I was like, I'll probably get to it in a month or two. And I finished a bunch of books on that trip. And I was like, it's time to get to it. And I was getting into it, and I just felt like, it's really great to be back in this world, in the world of Mistborn is called Scadrial. But not just Scadrial. It was really good to, Brandon Sanderson's writing, it's if you know anything about him, you probably know what it's like. It's not the most like prose heavy, or not the most like beautiful, excellent prose. Not to say that it can't be. For the most part, it is a little more simplistic. However, it's just so good. His worlds are so good. His books are just, they bring you this goodness, and even though they're just so good. And I was reading it. I was like, it's so great to be back in this world, back in the Cosmere as well. And I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna binge my way through more of it. And here I am, waiting for book 3, reading Elantris, and just having a fun time because, this is a universe that I'm interested in as well as Wheel of Time. And this episode of a chat was definitely kind of went off the rails a bit. I mean, not in the typical sense of a chat videos where I just start talking about drinkable lasagna. That was a weird video. Probably shouldn't have released that one. But because I started telling you about that thing going missing, the video files, some of them not existing anymore or being corrupted, and just talking about how, I'm trying to get you content, but it's hard. And, there's some stuff happening right now. Just telling you about some stuff that happened for the most part. And then I thought, I'll just tell you guys about what I'm reading right now. And now here we are, 17 minutes and like 30 seconds in. And yeah, I was ranting about books for most of it. And you know why I was ranting about books? Because I love books. People should read more books. If you don't read a lot of books, you should read more. And if you want some good recommendations to start reading fantasy books, I cannot recommend it more than, depending on which edition you get, The Final Empire or just Mistborn, first book of Mistborn. Very good. If you want a long book, read The Way of Kings, or The Last Wish, which is The Witcher book 1. It is a short story collection, if you didn't know that. I would also recommend the first book of Lightbringer, which is The Black Prism, or The Eye of the World, or The Hobbit, actually. The Hobbit or Harry Potter, if you haven't read that. Hobbit and Harry Potter were probably my first introduction into fantasy when I was a lot younger. The Hobbit was a very important book to me. My mom read it to me, and it was a great memory I have. And I recently reread it earlier this year, and it still holds up so well. And then once you finish that, you can read Lord of the Rings. However, The Hobbit. So, generally, when you read today, so think about how you read Shakespeare versus how you read normal stuff. It's a little more difficult to read Shakespeare because of how different he writes. That's just how people wrote then. And there's kind of a factor with Tolkien. It doesn't apply as much to The Hobbit, and it only applies way more to The Lord of the Rings. But there is a difference in writing style that is prevalent in The Lord of the Rings, which makes it difficult for some people to read. And I'm not going to lie, it's a little difficult at first because your brain has to make the switch from this more modern writing style to this older writing style that he wrote his books in. But once you make the switch, it's fine. It's, as long as your brain is switched, you should be good. But The Hobbit does not have that problem as much. So if you read The Hobbit and you go directly into The Lord of the Rings, keep that in mind. If you're like, this is difficult, stick with it because your brain will adjust and it will get better. I mean, I don't have much else to say. I'm gonna go eat some cookies. Maybe I shouldn't. That was weird. And keep looking for that starter set because I want to do that video. Where is my starter set? Who stole it? I'm trying to like poke the webcam, but it's weird, how you're like, how you're like in a camera and you're trying to like look directly at the camera, but also look at yourself. It's kind of like one of those things where you're like, woo, woo. All right. Adios.